Hi, Lane. How are you going?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, Carly.
It's so good to have you on here. We're so excited to hear what you have to share about nutrition. And I'm thinking that we can just start by hearing a little bit about, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for having me today. My name's Lane Wiederstein. I am a nutritionist from Melbourne. I focus on working with clients in a one-on-one setting to help them reach their health goals. I do focus predominantly on weight loss, and I also run some small group coaching programs. Some other things I really like to do, I work with clients to do some recipe development and some corporate cooking demonstrations, and then obviously running some sort of like workshops and Q&As like this. But I really love what I do, and I've always had a passion and an interest in health and nutrition, and I think helping others sort of achieve their goals through food is just like it just brings me so much joy. Just before we continue though, I would like to say that this conversation between Carly and myself is for educational purposes only and shouldn't be taken as specific or personalized sort of nutrition or medical advice. If you do need more assistance, you can see me or reach out to me directly, and I can definitely help you with a more personalized one-on-one approach.
Beautiful. So I guess this talk will just kind of be general sort of nutrition
Yeah,
stuff.
just
Awesome.
general nutrition stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of questions written down just to cover all bases. So I thought where we could start is just by asking you if you think there's such a thing as good foods and bad foods, and also what's your approach to nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I think, every nutritionist has probably their different approach. And I think for me, it is about steering away from like that diet culture and that diet mentality, because I see a lot of people, want to lose weight really quickly, and they're all after that sort of quick fix or quick approach. And it's just not sustainable long term. So I think it's about like educating yourself about how to portion different foods correctly, and always having like a very balanced approach. So, trying to eat pretty well 80% of the time, and, allowing yourself room to enjoy food without that guilt, sort of that remaining 20% of the time. And that's just very general, that 80-20 rule. But, I hate when people say that, they've got to cut out all these foods to lose a certain amount of weight or that kind of thing. When it comes to building your plate and making sure your macronutrients are portioned, I always say like fill your plate with heaps of, lower carb veggies to make your plate feel really bulky with lots of food. Make sure you've got that protein source, some healthy fats, and you add in some extra complex carbs as well. And I think that really works really well with people. And I really love using like a visualization of like a plate rather than like a calorie counting, because people can go one of two ways, right? Like they can get really obsessed with like, less calories equals better weight or, better health. And it's not always the way. We want to try and eat more foods to make us feel good, not take away foods. So yeah, I'm all about portioning your plate and being educated about, food rather than going down that sort of calorie counting kind of thing. And, showing people healthier food swaps. There's always going to be a healthier choice that you can make. So really educating people on that.
And so it sounds like being satisfied is a really important part of what you share with people. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many people, like people are really time poor, right? So it's about like making sure they've got enough energy across their day so like they can be productive at work, they can still exercise after work, or, have the energy to play with their children and be able to have the energy to cook, healthy meals and feel like all the benefits from doing that. So I think, sometimes when people resort to like quick fixes or diets, cutting your calories and cutting your food actually results in like everything opposite to what I've just said. You feel average, you don't want to work out, like things become hard. So I think when you do educate yourself on, different types of foods and whether they're higher in protein or carbs or fats or sugar and that kind of thing, and, where does your dietary fiber fit and how much water you're drinking, when you can focus on that and educate yourself a little bit more on that, I think it's not just about the weight loss, it's about just like feeling better and having better energy levels.
That makes a lot of sense. And, I think what comes to mind for me is how time poor people are, you know, and I know a lot of our clients are very busy people too. And I'm wondering, what would you suggest as like an on-the-go kind of breakfast during the week?
Yeah, good question. Because I feel like people either don't have breakfast because, yes, they're running out the door, or sometimes, like, say, they'll get into the office and they're kind of running down for morning coffee, and they might just grab that sort of like croissant or like the bagel that's at the cafe, or even just like a berry muffin. And yes, I think in moderation that's okay. But, you know, setting yourself up, like breaking the fast in the morning is like quite important, because you don't want to start off kind of on that wrong foot. So a lot of the foods I just described are really carb or sugar heavy. And if we don't balance that out with some, you know, protein and fats, it means that we're going to have this really huge spike in energy in the morning. And, you know, that sort of drops really soon after. And then we're looking for more carbs and more sugar, and we're not feeling very like energized across the morning. So I feel like, you know, starting a day off with a good, healthy breakfast. So, you know, trying to get some low carb fruits or veggies in, and, you know, adding some protein in there and some healthy fats in different ways is what we need to focus on. Some ways that you can do that, though, a really good one is a smoothie. You can prep the smoothie, you know, the night before, have those little like Ziploc bags with some of those like fruits in there. So you could have like a mixture of berries and even some frozen zucchini to throw in your blender, you know, add a protein powder in there, super simple. Some healthy fats, you could add some nut butters or some chia seeds. I like to add a little bit of psyllium husk for extra fiber, really good for your digestion and keeping things moving and regular. And then if you have done some exercise, I often suggest to people, you know, add a small banana in there. And, you know, that way, that's a really well-rounded meal. You know, you compare that to the muffin, which is predominantly just like sugar or like a croissant. That's going to set you up for those stable energy levels across the morning and get you from breakfast through to lunch. You're not going to be looking for extra food. So that's a really quick and easy one. You can even do the smoothie the night before, blitz it, put it in the fridge, put it in one of those takeaway sort of cups or travel mugs, whatever, shake it up in the morning, because it, you know, it kind of separates a little bit, and that's easy. Some other things that I like you could do is like some overnight oats, you know, put a bit of some berries in there, put that in the fridge. That's really good. Something like a frittata that you can make up, even on like a Sunday. I always say to people, if you know you're going to have a busy start to the week, make up a big like veggie frittata, or you could add some extra bacon or ham in there, slice it up into 6 pieces, and look, you've got breakfast for at least, you know, a few mornings of the week. And, you know, the thing about making something like a frittata is you kind of batch it. So, you know, you don't just have to eat it. The rest of your family can share that, or your kids can even enjoy that. And you just pair it with a little side salad. I mean, that could even be a lunch option as well. But some other really quick things are, you know, a little yogurt pot with some, you know, healthy berries and some nuts or something like that. You could even put a like scoop of protein powder in there. These are sort of just like quick 5-minute things. The other things you could do are like egg cups. So instead of doing the frittata, you could pour that frittata mixture into like a muffin tray, and, you know, make them sort of like individually. So you have like 12 sort of mini egg cups. And these are really good for like kids' lunch, if anyone has kids' lunch boxes, or you can even have this like in the afternoon as a snack, because, you know, it's pretty much just like veg in there with some protein, put a bit of feta on top. You've got some nice healthy fats in there as well. These are things you can prepare in advance. So you can literally be running out the door, take it to work in a little like, lunch box, or you can even take it to work and leave some of this stuff there at the start of the week. So you get to work, like for example, the frittata you could leave at work, and, you know, just make it up when you get to work doing those first few emails or something.
Such a great idea. All of those options are awesome.
Simple. I think when it comes to nutrition, you've got to make it easy for yourself, right? Like, you don't want complicated things in the morning. Things that you could be like watching out for would be like maybe not, I wouldn't say avoid, but just have a think about whether it's going to give you that sustained energy. Like, people always resort to things like, you know, cereals, toast by itself, or toast with like jam or like a spread on it that's like full of sugar. They're just not very like well-rounded meals. Like, the better thing you could do is like add some poached eggs on that toast, or, you know, poached eggs and avocado, because you want that protein in there. So like things like that, you know, seem really easy, are actually just not always the best option.
And do you think that because there can be, just say we're feeling tired from a long week, there's that kind of craving for sugar and that craving for carbohydrates?
You know where those cravings come from? So it normally, and I always tell people, like talk to my clients about this, because they're like, well, what do I do when I've got those sugar cravings? I always say to them, look back at the meals that you ate previously and what was in those meals. Like, did they have the protein? Did they have the fat? Did they have heaps of veg? Have you got the right portions? And if the answer is no, I always say to them, think about how you can kind of do that meal, recreate it tomorrow. Because if you balance your meal out with what those three components and then add your complex carbs, like, you know, the right portion for yourself, you shouldn't have those sugar cravings. You should have stable enough energy that you're not craving sugary things.
That makes so much sense.
I find that when people are tired, though, they do make sort of poorer food choices. So if you have had a long week and your energy's low, yes, you're going to kind of like, I don't know, sugar's that very easy, that quick fix. You think it's going to give you the energy, and it will, but for a short amount of time. And it's this vicious cycle. So, you know, in the afternoon, you're like, maybe some chocolate or a handful of lollies, or, you know, leftover cake that someone might have bought in for someone's birthday. It feels like an okay option. You might only have a little bit, but you're almost going to be looking for more of it an hour later.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And you spoke about coffee before, and I know a lot of people are sort of like, wake up, have a coffee, you know, get going. And I'm wondering, how do a few coffees a day fit into a healthy diet, or coffee at all?
Yeah, good question. So I think coffee actually does fit into a healthy diet. I think most people sort of have 1 to 2 coffees a day, but I think the issue is people drink it with lots of different types of milks, and people get confused about like, which milk should I have? You know, am I having too many coffees? I think it comes back to like, what's your goal? So if you are the type of person that's having like 3 coffees a day and you're having full cream milk in all of them, or you're having soy milk and you're trying to lose weight, though the calories and the sugar from those sorts of milks definitely add up. Whereas, you know, if you're not really wanting to lose weight and that's not your focus, maybe 2 cappuccinos a day kind of fits into like, you know, your daily kind of like calorie intake, and that's fine. But I think, you know, the minute people are drinking multiple coffees a day, you know, you kind of become reliant on it as well. So I often say, like, take a step back, have a little think of like, when you're having your coffees, what type of coffees you're having. Are you relying on it? Is it just habitual? You know, maybe you've had one normal coffee in the morning, maybe switch to a decaf in the afternoon, because I think people start to rely on it a little bit and they don't realize that they actually feel more anxious having that second or third coffee, and they don't realize until they take away that second or third coffee and maybe just have a standard coffee and then maybe switch to a decaf, how much like calmer they feel without it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But like coming back to that sort of milk, like the thing I said about milk is things like an unsweetened almond milk, or having your coffee black, or instead of having a cappuccino, you might go for like a piccolo, which is like a dash of milk. They would be really good options for people that are trying to like watch what they eat and maybe trying to cut or make some smaller changes. You know, if you look at soy milk and full cream milk, you know, there's a lot more carbs and calories in that than if you were to have a coffee kind of black or like a dash of unsweetened almond milk. The other thing I'll say is a lot of these cafes these days, you know, they're using things like almond milk, but they're like barista friendly, or they're not necessarily the most healthy option. And, you know, just because things say like almond milk or plant-based or dairy-free, it doesn't always mean the best option. A lot of cafes use something called Milk Lab. It's got added, like not added sugars, but they, you know, they thicken it with things like tapioca flour or rice flour, and sometimes they sweeten them. So watch out for things like that. Sometimes I say, grab your long black, have some unsweetened almond milk in the fridge at work and add your dash in. Or the other one would be just adding a dash of full cream milk is definitely fine as well.
Great suggestions.
Yeah.
And kind of brings me to talking about lunch. What do you think are some quick and healthy lunch ideas that can kind of be thrown together last minute?
Yeah, look, I think if you're in like an office space, or like, I'll talk about like if you're in an office space and like say you're going to like a supermarket and you want to grab like a few bits and pieces, you don't have time to like wait for someone else to make lunch, or you haven't maybe packed your lunch from home. Because my first suggestion would be, if you can, try and pack lunch for home. But just say like we're all back in the office in 2021 and we're like rushing out, we need like a quick 5-minute meal. You can definitely build something really quickly. It's convenient, it's not too expensive, and it's really nourishing. So a few suggestions would be something like one of those packeted like coleslaw mixes from the supermarket. You know, it's got like the shredded cabbage or carrot, it's got a little bit of corn and like some extra veggies in there. There's so many different varieties. Like there might be one that you might not like, but there might be one that you really prefer. So grab something like that. That's your low carb veg. You can add something like a tin of tuna on there. You could add that pre-packaged like smoked salmon in there. You could have boiled up some eggs that, you know, sitting in the work fridge, or if you're at home, you could have some boiled eggs as your protein source. Other things, you know, the supermarket do like shredded chicken that's already done. Don't even have to chop it up. So that would be the first two things. And then I'd add some healthy fats, whether it's like some olive oil. You could add a sprinkle of like pumpkin and sunflower seeds or some crushed nuts. Other healthy fats would be like feta. You can even get those sort of jars of feta that's already done in the olive oil. Keep that in the work fridge, super simple. Avocado, you don't even have to chop the avocado up. You can actually just get one of those packets that kind of already has smashed the avocado up. You know, you put some of that in and then make sure you've got plenty of flavor, because no one wants to have like a healthy meal that doesn't taste good. So in terms of flavor, you could add something like a hummus, or there's a really good brand called Pilpel that's really natural. It doesn't have like lots of added, you know, thickeners and preservatives. They do this amazing beetroot hummus, like that really spices up a meal. You could add some like dried herbs and spices. The supermarkets do those little Ziploc, you know, chopped basil or parsley or dried chili you could have at work, heaps of salt and pepper. And there's sort of your components there. If you want to add extra carbs, you could add those little like brown rice, you know, those cups you put in the microwave for 90 seconds, 2 minutes. Add something like that. Tinned, like those little tinned corn packets or like chickpea packets. You can actually get snack size of those these days. So you don't have to get the whole, you know, 400 gram of chickpea or beans or whatever it is. You know, something as simple as that in the snack size just serves one. You know, you add that to your meal and there's a complete meal. So like that's really simple. No chopping up required. Yes, it kind of comes in packets, but they're all really natural food sources. You know exactly what's going into your meal.
Great suggestions there once again. That sounds awesome. And Lane, I'm thinking about, you know, work lunches and, you know, going to restaurants and things like that. And how does someone who's wanting to live more of a healthy lifestyle navigate the restaurant scene?
Yeah, good question. Eating out, people get so fearful. And I think in terms of relevance to what's been happening, especially if you're in Melbourne and you're watching, or maybe, you know, other parts of Australia, we've done this lockdown for the last few months where everyone's been like a lot more control of what they're eating, because they're eating from home or like they've had to prepare their own meals. And there's this little bit of like angst at the moment because people are eating out more and they're socializing like, oh my goodness, like I'm not in control of what I'm eating anymore because I am socializing with friends and I'm going to restaurants, that kind of thing. I think there's a few different ways you can look at it. So when you are eating out, I often say enjoy the food and like don't think too much about it. You know, make sure you focus the rest of your week on like eating healthy and, you know, enjoy the food that's kind of on the plate and on the menu. However, if you do want to make some healthier options, I always say look at the menu, start with your protein, because a lot of menus start with like a main, which could be like a steak or a chicken or a fish. So start there, add heaps of sides. Like you've always got like the broccolini, the wilted spinach. The other week I was out and there was roasted like broccoli with toasted like nuts on top and this beautiful like hummus dip. Everyone was adding sides to the table and I was like, make sure you grab some of those. Like speak up if you're ordering like as a group, make sure you grab all those extra sides. And then the other thing would be if you are out at client lunches, just be mindful of like if there is alcohol, you know, how much you're drinking, what types of drinks can you be drinking, like you know, cocktails and beers are definitely higher sugar, higher calories. You know, opt for something like a drier wine or like a vodka lime soda or like a gin and diet tonic. But in saying that, you don't always have to have an alcoholic drink. Often I will go to an event and, you know, you might have one drink, but, you know, switch that second drink for just like a soda with a little bit of lime in there. No one ever asks you. And I think, you know, if you are wanting to be a little bit more mindful of your health, you know, everything in moderation. You don't have to miss out, but I think, you know, setting that boundary and, you know, like enjoying that alcoholic drink, but maybe switching that second one out for something else. Same comes to food, right? Like if someone had ordered lots of bits and pieces for the table and someone had ordered a big bowl of chips, have a handful of them. You don't need to cover your whole plate in it. You know, that kind of 80-20, come back to that rule. I think the other thing with menus is like there's a lot of kind of trendy places, say in the city or, you know, in a city these days. It's like modern Asian or lots of these degustation kind of things where there's lots of sauces and that kind of thing. I always suggest to people sauce on the side. You never know like what's in the sauces, especially because a lot of people have, you know, digestive upset these days, not sure what sort of sets them off. Sauces on the side, and you can always add a little bit if you need.
That is a really, really good idea.
Yeah.
Because I think also often you find sauces can be really sweet or just have things in them that you don't want.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is like you might not always be out at client lunches, but, you know, you might be going out to buy your food. So again, like you might not have taken your food from home. There's so many different places these days. I'm just thinking of the ones like in the Melbourne CBD, things like I think it's Fishbowl, or I actually wrote a few down. Fishbowl, Blue Bag. You can do your DIY salad, right? So everything that I kind of just described about building, you know, with the coleslaw, the tuna, the flavor and like those healthy fats with the avo, you can kind of do it at these places. Or, you know, look for like another place like Fox's Den is a really good food chain that does like the chicken and like the veg and heaps of salads, or something like a healthy fish and chips is like a hunky dory where, you know, you can order your fish, your brown rice and salad kind of thing. So just being mindful, like there's a lot of places you can kind of build your things from scratch rather than them kind of telling you what you eat. And people have this misconception that like salad is always better. Salad isn't always better. Like I had one girl that came to me the other day and she's like, oh, what did you think about this salad? It was a prepackaged salad. It had sugar added to the dressing, and it also had dried cranberry. So yes, the salad was pretty healthy, but just by adding that dried cranberries or the dried fruit plus the dressing that had heaps of sugar in it, I said to her, I was like, you may as well have had, you know, a salad sandwich with 2 pieces of bread, because the same amount of carbs and sugar in that sandwich as there is in the salad. So sometimes it's about like learning to read your food labels a little bit and start making some comparisons. And I guess it takes a little bit of time to kind of start to like understand food labels and that kind of thing. But, you know, just because something seems healthy, it's not always going to be the best option.
So you really have to look at what's in the food that you're eating.
Yeah, your ingredients. Like if there's 1,000 ingredients in like a food product, generally, you know, they've added all these ingredients to keep it fresher for longer so it can stay on the supermarket shelf. And I always think, come back to the roots, like fresh food, real food first before any of this other like packaged bits and pieces, because people rely on these convenient packaged things. And sometimes I think, you know, building it from scratch, you know exactly what's going into it.
And I also think, you know, it's probably cheaper to buy a whole cabbage and to do those things. So if you've got the time to prepare the coleslaw yourself, do it
Absolutely.
that way. But we're lucky that we've got alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have the time on like a Sunday, and I think meal prep's important, and we don't want it to take up our whole Sunday or our whole lives. And I'm not saying you have to meal prep 7 meals or anything, but if you've got an extra hour on a Sunday up your sleeve, do a few salads that are ready to go that you can take into the office, or if you're working from home, have them in your fridge ready to go, and you kind of like have that salad, add your bits and pieces on top, and you can have that throughout the week. Like less cleaning up time, yes, cheaper, and definitely really convenient.
Absolutely. And Lane, something that's been on my mind is the 3 p.m. slump. I feel like it's so common and so many people experience it. Like, do you have any, like, what is that about, and how, you know, is there a snack or something that you have in mind to help out with that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we did touch on it before. So as I said, like if you are having that 3 p.m. slump, look back at the meals that you previously had earlier that day. You know, did you build your meal properly? Did you have enough carbs? Did you not have enough carbs? That will really determine how you're feeling at that 3 p.m. Some people think they need a lot more sugar and carbs than what they do. And the minute they kind of take away and reduce it, they realize how much they were actually relying on it. And as I said before, the more more like sugar and cravings you have, the more you like feed that. It's like, because sugar's addictive, right? You know, say at 3 o'clock, you're going to get a coffee and then, you know, you grab a little like treat, whether it's a little chocky bar or a little packet of chips. The more you like fuel those cravings and those sugar sort of cravings that you have, the more your body's going to want to eat it. So my suggestion would be like in the afternoon, some little snacks that you could pack with work is some veggie sticks, add it with like a hummus, a pesto, a tzatziki dip, or even like a bit of smashed avo. Some nut butters are really good. Tahini's really great. So that's some quick and easy ones. You could do carrot sticks, celery sticks, cucumber sticks, kind of like whatever you like. And again, you can prep that on a Sunday and just kind of have it in little snap block bags or a big container of it in your fridge at the start of the week that you can kind of go to at 3 o'clock. The other suggestions, if you are feeling like something a little bit sweeter, because that is more of a savory one, you could go with some frozen berries, so like strawberries, blueberries. Put it in with some Greek yogurt or some coconut yogurt, add some cinnamon on top. Cinnamon's really good for sugar cravings and stabilizing those blood sugar levels, and make kind of like a yogurt pot. Or your other things, I always suggest, there's a brand called Well Naturally, and they do a chocolate bar, really low in sugar because they use a sugar substitute, and they've got different flavors. So that's even really good with like a chai tea with unsweetened almond milk in the afternoon. Or you could even, you know, have that long black in the afternoon, like, you know, with your afternoon coffee if it's a bit more social. Just trying to think of some other things. If it was more savory, you could always go for like a handful of nuts. So your almonds, your macadamias, pecans, things like that, handful of nuts. But be really mindful, like if you are grabbing that as sort of like a snacky on the go and it's already pre-packaged, a lot of them are, you know, cooked in canola oil, or they've got lots of like salt added. I often say to people, like, you know, when you're doing your big grocery shop at the end of the week, grab lots of different like seeds and nuts, pop them in the oven, toast them yourself, add your own sprinkle of salt, have a jar of it, and just portion it out as your snacks across the week. You know, you just know what's going into your food. And I think the theme that you can probably start to see along our conversation, Carly, is the more involved you are in like what food you eat, the better you start to feel. Honestly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know that from my own experience too. I guess you just really have to set aside the time and prioritize it.
Yeah. And I think if you do want to feel better, there's a reason you're not feeling great at the moment, right? And there's a reason you're thinking about wanting to make some change. And if you continue to do what you're currently doing, you're probably not going to see much change in terms of your energy, your better skin, your better digestion, in terms of your weight. Something's got to give. There has to be some kind of change, and you've got to be willing to make that change. And I think it's not about, you know, waiting until the next week or the next year to make that change. Start making small changes daily, because it's about progress, not perfection. No one's perfect. No one expects you to eat perfect. And I think making it sustainable and being able to eat healthy long term, it's about starting to make those small adjustments just every day. Just small adjustments. That's all it is.
Beautiful. And Lane, you've sort of touched on this, but for the, you know, for people who are really trying to eat healthy and they're trying to lose weight, but it's not quite happening, like, what do you think, what could be going wrong?
Yeah, I think when people think that they're eating healthy and they're not actually, say, losing weight, it comes down to portioning your plate, right? So often, like, you know how I said to you, like 50% low carb veggies, often that's like higher carb veggies, or they've like got a lot of rice on their plate, or, you know, they're building their meal on pasta or bread, and then they're adding that protein and the fats like on top of that. So I think it's about like turning it upside down and portioning your food a little bit differently. A lot of the time people eat really well during the week, and it gets to the weekend and they're just really inconsistent. You know, they're out for breakfast, they're out for drinks. they're doing more socializing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it comes back to like setting some boundaries in terms of like, yes, my goal is to lose weight, so I actually need to set some boundaries. So maybe it's about eating out once a week, and that's kind of like your treat meal or your cheat meal, whatever you want to call it, and don't sort of let that turn into like a whole weekend kind of event. Because, you know, if you're eating all 5 days and you've got 2 days where you're completely off track, you know, your overall weight, the weight loss isn't going to be very consistent. And those 2 days could definitely kind of trip you up. So the other thing is like, you know, working from home, people are doing a lot of snacking. So yes, you might be having some really wholesome meals, but, you know, these healthy snacks that you're having throughout the day definitely add up in terms of like calories. So one thing that I always suggest to people, if you're not sure about where your food's coming from, the first bit of education you can do is, you know, download a free app like MyFitnessPal on your phone and just add in a few different foods that you're having and just have a look of like what food you're eating, how much food you're eating, and maybe it is too much, or maybe you're not eating enough. Like it can definitely go two ways.
So portion is really, really important. And
portion is very, very important. Yeah.
Well, my next question was going to be about, you know, how we're coming into the festive season, and obviously there's, you know, a lot of social events and things going on. And, you know, I was going to ask about, you know, how would you suggest that people stay in shape? But I feel like you've sort of covered that. But is there anything else that you'd add?
Yeah, I think in terms of like staying in shape and staying on track with your health goals, let's come back to your why. Like, why is it that you're wanting to, you know, feel healthy in the first place? Like if there is that temptation, you know, to have more drinks at a social event or, you know, indulge in more dessert over Christmas, always come back to your why and think like, I'm actually trying to make changes to better myself and feel better. Because, you know, if we don't sort of come back to that, you know, there's nothing sort of keeping us, you know, in check. And also the accountability, like if you are trying to achieve a certain health goal, whether it's lose weight or improve your digestion, tell someone about it. Like if you live with people, whether it's your family, your partner, your girlfriend, whatever, communicate that. Because often I feel like the person who you live with can sometimes be a bit of a burden in terms of your health if they're not kind of like in tune to that, or they've got different health goals. So, you know, just keep them in check as well. But in terms of socializing, like we all have this thing, you know, we go to someone's, you know, house and we all say, oh, I can bring something, I can bring this. And everyone always brings like, you know, cheese and chocolate and wine and stuff. Why don't you take like a healthy salad that at least, you know, like when the food gets served up, at least you can kind of build your meal like on those, you know, really nutritious sort of like foods. That would be a good one there. And then just obviously like choosing better alcohol over others. So, you know, less sugary alcohol, drink in moderation across the festive season. I'm just trying to think what else. Yeah, I don't know, being like more disciplined in the week if you know that like the weekend's going to be a little bit more like, you know, yummier kind of foods. And then don't skip the exercise kind of thing. Like, you know, if exercise is part of your normal week, try and continue to stay in like some kind of like routine, whether it comes to like, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Try and eat even on the holidays around the same kind of times, I think. And then things like, you know, penciling in something that next day or being accountable to someone, whether it's like a workout you're booking in, you know, with a gym or a Pilates class, that could be your thing. Or, you know, penciling in a walk with a friend, you know, the next morning, so you don't feel like anything the night before or the day before is going to be completely derailed, because you know, you're accountable to that person. You've kind of set those boundaries. And the other one is, if you are eating out or going to an event, be the designated driver. I often do it so I know I can have, you know, 1 alcoholic drink or 2 alcoholic drinks across 2 hours. And no one wants to leave their car and have to get it the next day. Like if you've committed to that, you know, that's it. You can still have a good night. It doesn't always have to be like revolved around alcohol or, yeah.
Absolutely. And then you can wake up in the morning feeling good.
Fresh as a daisy. Yeah.
It's your routine. And can I just ask one last question, Lane? Do you think eating consistently is important? Because I know there's a lot out there on fasting and, you know, all that sort of thing. And I'm wondering, like, in your approach, is it kind of like eat at regular times during the day, keep it consistent?
Yeah, like most people should, I always think that people need to work at their meal timing in accordance to like what their activity level is like. So say you exercise in the mornings, you know, you're probably going to have like a pretty substantial breakfast because, you know, you need that energy across the day. If you're someone that doesn't really exercise in the mornings, or you're injured, or yeah, you might actually decide to have a smaller breakfast because you aren't burning as many calories, kind of thing, and then have a pretty big lunch and pretty big dinner. But in terms of like consistent across the day, you know, if you're eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you know you've built your meals well-roundedly with those low-carb veggies, the fat, the protein, and a little bit of complex carb. I always say time that complex carb around your exercise. So if you've exercised in the morning, try and add more complex carbs in the morning. If you've exercised after work, you know, try and add some complex carbs, whether it be a bit of, you know, wholemeal pasta or some quinoa or some rice to your dinner. So yeah, I think it comes back to like when you're exercising, but you know, we shouldn't be snacking in between meals. If we have a substantial meal, we should be able to drink water throughout the day, have some herbal teas, have a few coffees, and it kind of like get us through.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all of that, Lane. That's so
That's all right.
incredibly helpful. And just finally, where can people find you? Where can they stay
Yeah,
up to date with what you're doing?
my online home is my website. It's www.lanewiederstein.com. I'm sure Carly will be able to give you like the spelling of that because Wiederstein
Absolutely.
can be a bit tricky to spell. But if you're on social media, I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I feel like people, you know, are always finding out new restaurants, health places, travel destinations. Like it's such a good like resource hub. So I'm also on Instagram. I'm low.carb.nutritionist. So reach out to me there. I have heaps of free resources on there and on my website. And if you're needing more like specialized nutrition advice or meal plans, please reach out because I'd love to work with you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lane.